Okay, so lecture 4. In this lecture, we're going to cover the annotation. We'll also take a look at paper space versus model space. And we're going to, last but not least, we'll look at what an external reference is. Okay, you've seen this annotation all over in a lot of things that we did. And this annotation is nothing more than it gives it a scale, and it does a lot of the work for you. So if you set the scale to the right thing, it'll do a lot of multiplication that we used to do in a lot of these other things like our dimensioning styles or our text styles or some of our other styles. Well, the multi-leader style is the third one that we're going to take a look at. And all these can be annotated, as well as your center lines and your hidden lines and things of that nature. So a lot of times when we went to the dim style command, remember we always had an annotation option or an annotative option, and it was here. So remember underneath the fit tab in your dimensioning styles, we always had this annotative, and it was usually unchecked. Well, now when we look at it and we check that box, you'll see that we don't have to worry about the scale factor of our title block, because what we do is that we will set the scale up. And if you know the scale factor already, this is going to do all the multiplication for you. You'll also have that option over here in your text styles. So I can also make them annotative. I just need to tell it what size I want to do in just plain English. So if I want my text height to be 0.125, and if I set my annotation scale to 3 inches equals a foot, then it automatically knows to multiply that by 4, and it'll do the work for you. It'll also do that with your multi-leaders. So and there's the option for that. Any of these styles any of these styles, you can go ahead and create them and make them annotative just by checking those boxes. So if you wanted to create a new style and make it annotative, you can go through, and when you get to that option, you can put a check in that box, and it'll make that style annotative. The scale that you're going to see is usually going to be at the bottom right, and you can click the button, and it'll jump open this big scale. And these are some of the most common scales that you're going to see in the industry. The top half is going to be the metric, and then the bottom half is going to be the imperial units. So you can look at the scale, and on this one I chose one that equals to 3 is equal to 1 foot. When you go to make a customized one, it's going to ask you in paper units, and then it's going to ask you in drawing units. The one on the left side is going to be the paper units, and the one on the right side is going to be the drawing units, if that kind of makes any kind of sense. So that's just telling me that 3 units on my paper, or 3 whatever distance is on my paper, equals to 12 units on the actual drawing. Okay, let's take a look at paper space. And paper space is really a neat thing that it'll let you combine multiple drawings into one thing, is the first thing about it. These tabs that's always been at the bottom of your drawings, that's usually been model, layout, and layout 2. You always see them at the bottom, but we've always been working in the model space. When you first switch to paper space, it usually has a rectangle and whatever geometry you have drawing behind it, and it looks like a paper that's actually there. So that's kind of how you know you're in paper space, and the icon usually changes. So that UCS is going to change to a triangle. So when you're done in that one, you'll have you'll have 2 different ways of jumping over to the paper space command. You can click on where it says layout 1 or layout 2, or you can hit this little plus button and add more layouts if you want. Or you can just type in PS on your command line, and that will get you there. If you're not seeing these layout tabs here, in the options, you'll have that option to turn these on, and it's going to be here where it says display the layout and model tabs. Okay, once you're done and you have everything set up in your paper space, sometimes depending on whatever title block you put in, it's not big enough or it's too small or whatever the situation may be, you can adjust that by choosing the page setup manager, and that's also going to be on the layout tab at the top, and it's going to be the second icon from the left. So you got 2 different ways of getting there, and it's just going to bring you open to this print setup, just like you usually see if you're going to make a print. And then I'll go through on the videos and show you how to set that up to match your drawing so everything matches accordingly. One of the important things to remember that when you're dealing with in paper space is that all of my units are going to be 1-to-1. So there's no need to worry about an annotative or anything of that nature. Just use the standard, and then that way your inches and everything will read over perfectly. I like to always tell people put all their annotation stuff in the paper space, not in model space. So make sure that you are outside in paper space instead of being in model space. Here you have some viewports, and these viewports are ways of showing you where you kind of are in reference to it while you're in paper space. So you have this layout viewport tab, and in the videos I also show you how you can make almost anything that's a closed object into a viewport. You can use these, and these are on the drop down on the ribbon, and the shortcut for it is just multi-view or MV, and that'll bring it. Here at the bottom, this is just a note to make sure that you know that you're in a viewport when it is bold. So it's going to be a bold outline around whatever you have. Once you double click on the inside of it, that means you're working in model space, but you're taking a look at it through paper space, and it's going to be bolded. To get out of that, double click on the outside of that rectangle or whatever your viewport is, and then it should unbold, and now you're back in paper space. So once again, make sure that you're you're in paper space when you're presenting or putting in your annotation. Here's a kind of quick look at what's going on, what you're actually kind of seeing behind the scenes. So when you first start creating a drawing, you create it back in the model space. Now you're going to switch over to paper space, and you're going to bring in your title block. It's usually going to have a rectangle around it, and that's what you're seeing here, and that's going to be your viewport that's taking a look at what's going on behind it. The way I like to always explain people about paper space is this paper space is nothing more than a piece of paper, and this viewport is nothing more than me just cutting into that paper so I can see what's going on behind it. So once you have this, your title block inserted, and you have your geometry inserted, I usually at the last step here is I'll turn off my viewport. Now it does not turn off your geometry, it just hides that line that's going around it. And then I put all of my annotation on the outside here. Once again, all my text height and everything is at 1:1. So whatever dimension style or anything that I'm using, it's going to automatically be 1:1 according to the paper size, so I don't have to worry about multiplying anything or doing anything differently. So this is kind of a neat way of looking at what's actually going on. Last but not least, let's go ahead and take a look at an X reference. An X references are nothing more than you're adding something to your drawing that may be somewhere else. So for example, if you have a teammate that may be working on something very similar to you, you can attach their drawing to your drawing, and as they're making theirs and creating them, and when they save it, next time you open up your drawing, that X reference will go and pull his latest save, and then it'll update your drawing. So this is kind of one of those things where multiple people can be working on things. Also, you can attach an image, you can attach PDFs, you can attach, you can see the list right here, quite a few different things. These X references are the shortcut for it is XR, and like I say, they are attached to that drawing. One thing that I don't like about it is you got to make sure that you keep your X references saved all in the same location. If that path gets moved, then obviously it loses in an AutoCAD, and then you have to go and relink it. You do have an option in there, I know, with drawings that you can bind it or basically make it become part of your drawing. So you could take something from somewhere else and then bind it to your drawing. Now it's yours. And once again, I do show you that in the video.